What's going on, guys? Ryan Rooker with Scrubs Unite here, and I was actually going to do a raving mad video this Thursday about, how idiotic it is that we don't have a ban list yet, but I think I don't need to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and halt production. I repeat, halt production. This is not a drill. So, what we have is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list reaction video, and I'm using my girlfriend's phone, so I'm going to go ahead and just go down through it. That way I know I don't miss anything. And I'm going to give you the best reaction that I can based on what I've seen. Now, I have seen this list beforehand. This is not a live reaction. This is a reaction and a discussion video over what I think the meta is going to shape up to look like. So, first things first, we have the Astrograph Sorcerer. Astroglide needed to be hit a long time ago. I think it was honestly more devastating than harmonizing was. And I feel like maybe one harmonizing would be fair, but we didn't do that because the deck just needs to overall die. Every single format where magicians have had access to combo off at all, they have been one of the top 3 to 4 decks in the metagame. So it was really necessary, not being a once per turn, being able to search any pendulum or any monster in the graveyard, so you can even search hand traps. It was really just something that was kind of broken, and being able to use it to go into something like Starving into Absolute, to go into something along the lines of Vortex Dragon, stuff like that needed to be addressed. So that was actually a solid hit. Masterpiece, the True Draco Slaying King. Now, I'm a part of a True Draco page. I do not play Draco, but I do recognize, the compatibility of the deck with every other pretty much draw engine in the world. So, while Masterpiece being gone is a dangerous thing, because Draco kind of lose their automatic win condition, they still are big beat stick dot deck. And they have a lot of draw engines, they have a lot of search engines, and I don't foresee the deck really... I don't foresee it being bad, even without it. Rocky Boy, Majesty Made, and Ignis Heat is still a thing, and so are some other things that we're going to go down through here and discuss. I'm not going to give any spoilers on this in case you haven't looked at the ban list yet. So... next, we have Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. This one I shake my head at because I agree and disagree with this hit. While I agree with it because it needed to be done, I very much disagree with this because I feel like you could have hit the FTK in more ways than Astrograph and not touch Starving Venom. The ability to duplicate effects is just something that's really good in this game, but it's nothing broken as long as you don't have the cards to make it broken. So taking out stuff like Nightingale would have been the better hit, because that would have let us also take Tyrant Neptune off the list, because without Nightingale there was no Neptune FTK. But this is the way they chose to go about it, and while it's not the hit that I would have preferred, I still really like this hit because it eliminates the FTK. Next, we have Ancient Fairy Dragon. Ancient Fairy Dragon is one of those that I've been wanting and advocating to be at 0 for quite a while. Not because I hate the card. I actually happen to really love the card. I ran it in Zephyra, and I really like the combos you can perform with it. It's also runnable in a lot of other decks and a lot of other engines. I even ran it in a generic stun deck for a while with Closed Forest, and it worked really well. But I can see where this needed to go to 0. Just the ability to go into a massive play extender that was, it was unchecked. And while it was a once per turn effect, usually once per turn was all you needed. And Ancient Fairy being stackable with Soul Charge, in the very rare instance you can get both of those in your hand for it, still kind of put yourself in one of those positions where you're not quite sure if they should both exist. So now we go down to rank up Magic Argent Force. Now, I've heard some people kind of shake their heads and say, I don't know why this got hit. They shouldn't have hit it. It was an unnecessary hit. Let me tell you, the Zexalock with S0 was live, and with this, it's a big hit. Not saying that it is impossible to pull off now, but it was extremely super consistent with its recurability, and with Pendulum Magicians using chronograph sorcerers to go into Beatrice to pitch it and add it to their hand. So that was more of a heavy consistency hit, and one that kind of puts the Zexal lock a bit more in check. That grass looks greener. Thank God. I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank God, because that card needed to go a long damn time ago. I'm satisfied with this. Dynamite Knight, the True Draco Fighter, to 1. This is one of them that I said we were going to discuss, and there's another one or two that I'm going to discuss here in a little bit. So, Dynamite Knight being brought back gives them not really a win condition, but it brings back a replacement card, and it still applies to the synergy of the deck. Rather than the entire deck suffer and just die off, they decided to give it something that'll give it just a little bit of fight, just enough to where you can make it into like a control variant deck, and it'll actually be, I feel, mildly successful. Gem Knight Master Diamond to 1. Now, I've heard people say, you can still pull the FTK with 1 Master Diamond. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not going to confirm or deny it. So, what I'm going to say here is that I actually did say that this one could happen. I don't think Lapis Lazuli needed to be killed, because by herself, she's not a threat for the Gem Knight deck. A lot of people will say, well, they could say the same for Starving Venom and Nightingale, but the truth of the matter is that the difference is instant fusion. And really, I feel like Master Diamond was a more necessary hit, because while Gem Knights will now still have that big attack boss monster, they're also still going to have burn potential without committing to an FTK, rather than having to outright lose Starving Venom Dragon like Magicians did. Chain Strike to 1. This I was kind of wondering why, and then I watched the House of Champs video. They actually brought to John actually brought to light that Chain Strike probably went to 1 as a preemptive hit for the Lair of Darkness combos that are just absolutely ridiculous in Chain Burn. I missed one a second ago, Phoenician Cluster Amaryllis. For that I'm sorry, but it goes to 0. This was a preemptive hit, probably projecting that in Relentless Revenge, we're going to get a Romage Seraphy Jasmine. And really, and with that being killed now, it shows that Konami doesn't tolerate the FTK decks. Going to 2, Apocalypse Towers. Okay. Nobody cared at 1. Nobody will care at 2. And as far as I'm concerned, nobody will care at 3. Sacrifice is, it wasn't enough to make the deck good. Scout still at 1. As long as Scout stays at 1, I don't think we'll have to worry about Towers Turbo in the near future. Ring of Destruction. Good stun card. Back to 2. I don't foresee this being much of a threat. People aren't playing it at 1. Konami sees that. They know stun decks like Altergeist will like it, but it's not going to be enough to like push any deck, to be overwhelming with it. And you're not going to hear people say, well, Ring of Destruction sacked me. Atlantean Dragoons to 3. Well, there goes my chance of building Element Saber properly, because I wasn't paying $50 for Moulin Glacia before. And I imagine that by the time this video reaches like 300 likes, Moon Glacier will be a $70 card. So, I'm not building this. I'm not even going to pay out the money for Moon Glaciers. I'll rather wait until people look at it and say, well, everything's died down. Moon Glacier will get a reprint to be a hard once per turn like Grand Soil and all the others. I believe that'll happen within the next year or two. So I'm just going to hold off. I know by then Element Sabers won't be good, but I kind of like the deck just as a fun mess around deck that might be good to just mess around and play with. Grand Soil Unlimited because of the hard ones per turn errata, which they announced that shortly after the errata we would be getting a ban list. Now this ban list isn't effective until this time next week, so that would be the 21st. And I'm actually very happy about that because that gives me one more week to where you can mess around and adapt to this new ban list before you actually are forced to play it in a tournament and go into an undefined and no idea what you're doing meta. Or rather, as people like to call it, this one is going to give me nightmares with a K. Ignis Heat to 3. Okay. Again, Draco Stun is live. Draco Stun can still become a thing. And that is something that, while I'm not happy or sad about it, you know, I'm glad they addressed the problem of Masterpiece. And that's something that they needed to do. Mathematician to 3. Long awaited. You see it in the occasional BA deck, maybe 60 card. But 60 card's dead with grass now. Nobody's going to want to run 60 card. And if they do, they're going to be running like Light Sworn Zombie Mill and just run something else instead of their power play. Which, in all honesty, that opens up 4 card slots. They could throw just about anything else in those 4 card slots, and they'd be good to go. Neospatian Grand Mole to 3. Old school players rejoice. So, this is a card that has probably been waiting to come off this list since about 2015. And I don't see somebody Pendulum summoning 3 Grand Mole anytime soon. You know, I'm going to quote Simo on that. Now, I will say, though, that people can exploit the idea of 3 Grand Mole. You could do that. But why? Why would you do that? So, it was long awaited. Who's going to spam Grand Mole? Not me. I might run one in my stun deck just for shits and giggles. Compulse to 3. This is one that I really like the look of because it turns pretty much turns mass destruction removal into where it's still a subpar method of removal, because while it will eliminate your entire field, there's a lot of things that are unaffected by destruction. So now, having those 3 compulse, while it still targets, you can hit important key combos without destroying them, which means that compulse may have come back, this is my theory, may have come back to combat nightmares. Because Nightmare Goblin will traditionally be in their graveyard more frequently, which gives you open windows to where you can actually cancel out the Nightmare combos, or at least the massive board presence of it in a way. If you was to hit something like, I can't remember if it's Cerberus or Phoenix that prevents destruction by card effects, if you hit that towards the end of the combo when they normal summon, when they get ready to use Inheritor, bounce back Phoenix, they bring back either Goblin or something to that extent, and now you can still Raigeki their field, and that would take care of the problem. So now we have our way to combat nightmares. It's an unsearchable 3 of, but now we have the opportunity to run it at 3, so now we have a much more consistent out to be able to access it. And I'll take a 20% chance, which is roughly what your opening hand is, of opening this card, rather than a 2.125% chance. I like those odds much better, and the capability of being able to just non-destruction removal something in order to break an extra link or eliminate board problems, I really like. Now, if you was to use it to hit something else, like mermaid or anything else, you will have your extra deck presence, and you could even start running sphere modes and tribute Ibley off your field as well as 2 of their others, and you've effectively broken their board. You have stripped them of a lot of the capacity that deck now has. So overall, I like this list. There's 1 or 2 that kind of make me, question what it's doing. So it's kind of a difficult measurement to grasp, but we'll see how this meta develops, and I like this overall. So yeah, I'm going to have some fun. What about you guys? Tell us what decks you're going to be running and what you're going to be playing around with. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks, YouTube.